Hi friends, good evening. Welcome to Get Your Play Online. My name is Michelle and tonight for our bedtime stories, we are going to be finishing up the second half of this book that we started reading last week. So if you have this book on your bookshelf, go ahead and grab it and we can read it together. This is the 28th book in the Magic Treehouse series. It's called High Tide in Hawaii, and we had left off last week. We read that Jack and Annie traveled back in time to Hawaii, and they met some indigenous people there, and they met two friends that were about their age named Boca and Kama. And the villagers there let them stay overnight, and they had some breakfast together, and they're about to go surfing, as you can see on the cover. And Jack is really hesitant about the surfing, but Annie is super excited about it. So I wonder if maybe Jack will overcome his fear of surfing and maybe learn something new. So let's find out what happens in the second half of this book. And we are starting on page 35. It's chapter 5. So we're going to read chapters 5 through 10 tonight. Chapter 5. It's called Go. And at this point, let me just recap really quick. At this point, they had just gotten to the beach and they were talking about surfing. So Boca looked at Jack and grinned. "Ready?" he asked. "I'm ready," said Annie. "Where do we get our surfboards?" "Down there," said Kama. She pointed to a rocky path that led to the beach. "Let's go," said Annie. Annie, Boca, and Kama started down the path. Jack followed, moving slowly and carefully. When he stepped onto the beach, Jack slipped off his shoes. He dug his toes into the warm, dry sand. It felt as soft as silk. "Actually, I wouldn't mind just taking a walk on the beach," he said to the others, but no one seemed to hear. They all had walked over to a row of wooden surfboards propped up against the rocks. Boca picked out a long board and lugged it over to Jack. "For you," he said. Jack took the board and looked up at it. It was tall as his dad. "Isn't this a little big for me?" he asked. Boca shook his head. He chose a board for Annie, and then he and Kama grabbed a couple for themselves. Those are really big surfboards. So here is what it looks like in comparison to Kama. They're super long. Jack took a deep breath. "I'd like to read a little bit about surfing first," he said. He put his board down and pulled out the research book. "What is that?" said Kama. "It's a book," said Jack. "It tells you all about things." "How does it talk?" said Kama. "It doesn't talk," said Annie. "You read it." Kama looked confused. "Jack, forget the book now," said Annie. "Let's just go do what Boca and Kama tell us." She headed for the ocean, lugging her board. Jack sighed and put the book away. He left his pack in the sand, picked up his board, and followed the others. They all stopped at the edge of the water. "First, we need to get past the breaking waves," said Kama. "Then we'll show you what to do next." Together they waded into the cool, shallow water. The waves don't seem all that big, Jack thought hopefully. But as he waded deeper into the ocean, the breaking waves began to look bigger and bigger. When the first wave hit him, Jack leaned against it, lifting his board. He nearly fell over. Kama, Boca, and Annie moved farther out into the ocean. Jack watched as a wave loomed over them. They all threw their boards over the wave and dove into it. Jack struggled forward. The next time a big wave came toward him, he threw his board over it. Holding his glasses tightly, he ducked under. When Jack stood up again, he wiped the water from his eyes and glasses. His surfboard was close by, and he grabbed it before another wave came. Jack kept fighting his way forward. By the time he got past all the breakers, the water was up to his chest. "We'll paddle out to catch a big wave," said Boca. Jack frowned. "But don't worry, Jack," said Kama. "It will be fun." Boca and Kama pulled themselves onto their boards. They lay down on their bellies and began paddling with their hands out to sea. Jack and Annie lay down on their boards, too. Paddling over the gentle waves, Jack relaxed. Now this was something he could do all day. "When I say go, you paddle fast back toward the shore," said Kama. "When do we stand up?" said Annie. "When you start towards the shore," said Boca. Stand up with 1 foot forward. Stretch out your arms to keep your balance. But don't try to stand up the very first time, said Kama. Just ride on your board on your belly. I see one coming now, said Boca. Wait, wait, said Jack. Everything was happening too fast. He had questions. Go, Kama shouted. Jack saw a big wave rolling toward them. Before he knew it, Boca, Kama, and Annie were paddling quickly toward the shore. Jack paddled like crazy to keep up. Suddenly, the wave lifted him and swept him forward. Jack zoomed toward the shore with amazing speed. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Boca and Kama and Annie all standing up. There they are. Jack wanted to be like them. In a flash, he went up on his knees. He put his left foot forward and he stood up. For 1 second, he felt like a soaring bird. Then he lost his balance. Jack fell into the water, grabbing his glasses just in time. The wave crashed down on top of him, and the water filled his mouth and went up his nose. His board and his lei were swept away. Jack twisted and turned in the churning water. When his head bobbed up above the water, he choked and coughed. Another big wave crashed down on him, and he went back under again. When he came up, he plunged forward, desperately trying to get to shore. Again and again, Jack was thrown down and slammed by the breaking waves, but each time he got up and hurled himself closer to the shore. Finally, Jack dragged himself out of the ocean. Feeling bruised and battered, he fell onto the sand. Chapter 6. Shake Up. Jack, cried Annie. She ran to him. Are you okay? Jack just nodded. He put on his wet glasses. He felt shaky and mad at himself. I never should have tried to stand, he thought. Kama picked up Jack's surfboard from the shallow water and brought it over to him. I told you not to stand, she said, laughing. You fell hard. It's not funny, thought Jack. I nearly drowned. The best thing to do is go right back out, said Boca. You go, said Jack. His eyes and nose burned from the salt water. I'll stay here. He walked over to his pack, picked it up, and took out the research book. Come on, Jack, said Annie. Try it again. Stay on your belly this time. No, this time I'm going to read about surfing first, he said. Oh, you should just try it again, said Annie. Not read about it. She ran to him and pulled the book out of his hands. Jack jerked it away from her. He slipped and fell into the sand. Kama and Boca started laughing again. Why are you laughing? Jack snapped. You don't even know how to read. Boca and Kama looked hurt. Jack, said Annie, that was mean. Say you're sorry. Jack opened his book and pretended to read it. He did feel sorry, but he was too upset to say so. Fine, stay here, said Annie. She went back to Boca and Kama. Let's go. As Jack sat alone on the beach, he looked up from his book, and he watched the other kids paddling through the water. I don't care, he muttered. I'm never going back out into those waves. Morgan didn't send us here to surf anyway, he thought. She told us to build a ship. But how the heck are we supposed to do that? Jack heaved an angry sigh. Now he was cross with Morgan. He turned to the back of the book and searched in the index for ship. Suddenly, Jack heard a rumbling from under the sand. The ground started to shake. It shook so hard, the book flew out of Jack's hands. Jack bounced up and down on the beach. The shells were jumping up and down too. Rocks tumbled down from the cliff. It's an earthquake, thought Jack. The rumbling stopped. The shaking stopped. Jack looked around. Everything was normal again, except some rocks that rolled around at the bottom of the cliff. Jack looked out to sea. Kama, Boca, and Annie were past the breakers. They were sitting on their surfboards, laughing and talking. Everything seemed okay. But Jack felt sure that something was wrong. He grabbed the Hawaii book from the sand, and he looked up earthquake. He read, earthquakes in Hawaii have been known to cause tsunamis, which used to be called tidal waves. An earthquake can cause water out at sea to be set in motion. The water grows higher and higher as it moves toward land. Just before the tsunami strikes, the water may pull away from the shore, when it returns in a giant wave that crashes over the land and washes everything away. Oh no, thought Jack, a tsunami might be coming. Chapter 7. Ride for your lives. Jack had to find out more about tsunamis quickly. He read as fast as he could. A tsunami can strike a few hours or a few minutes after an earthquake. It depends on the strength of the earthquake and where it took place. After earthquakes, it is safest for islanders to seek high ground. We have to get to higher ground now, thought Jack, dropping the book. He ran down to the edge of the ocean. Boca, Kama, and Annie were still paddling out beyond the waves, and Jack forgot all about their fight. Hey, you guys, he yelled. They didn't hear him. Jack went into the shallow water. Hey, you guys, he yelled. Come back. They still didn't hear him. Jack ran to his surfboard, grabbed it, and ran into the ocean. He fought the breaking waves. Once he was past them, he threw himself onto his board and paddled wildly. The wave swells grew as he paddled. He could hardly see Annie, Boca, or Kama over them. Jack paddled faster and faster, trying to reach them. Hey, he yelled. Hey! Boca looked back at him. He gave Jack a friendly wave and then turned away again. I have to get them to come to me, Jack thought frantically. Help, help, he yelled at the top of his lungs. The three kids jerked around, and they paddled quickly toward Jack with worried faces. What's wrong? Annie cried when they got closer. Are you in trouble? We all are, said Jack. A tsunami might be coming. There was an earthquake when I was on the beach. We'd better ride in fast, said Boca. Stay on your bellies, said Kama. It's safer. Here comes a wave, cried Boca. They all started paddling. The swell of the wave picked up. They were all swept forward. Jack gripped the sides of his board as he zoomed along with the others. Suddenly, he dropped down as the wave curled under. It felt like a roller coaster, but he stayed on his board as the wave carried him to shore. Jack rolled off into the shallow water. He snatched up his board and ran onto the sand. Boca and Kama were waiting. Good riding, Jack, said Boca. Where's Annie? Asked Jack. Boca pointed. Annie was in the shallow water, pulling her board in. As they watched, something very weird began to happen to the water. The water around Annie started to pull away. Run, Annie! Jack screamed. And this is chapter 8. The water drew away from the beach, and a loud hissing sound came from the sea. Suddenly, fish flopped onto the bare sand. Annie threw down her board and ran. She grabbed Jack's hand as she ran by him. Jack grabbed Boca's hand, and Boca grabbed Kama's hand. They all ran together, pulling each other along as they raced to the cliff. Boca and Kama ran up the cliff path. Jack and Annie grabbed their shoes and Jack's pack. Then they scrambled up the path too. At the top of the cliff, everyone looked back. Jack couldn't believe his eyes. A wave was rising up like a dark mountain of water. It came surging toward the shore, growing even taller. There's a wave. It's so big because look, there are the four friends down here. They're so tiny. Wow, whispered Annie. Get back, shouted Boca. The four of them bolted back from the edge of the rocky slope. The mountain of water crashed against the cliff. Water sprayed over the top of the rocks and rained down on them. Then, when the water rolled back over the cliff, they all hurried back to the edge to see what had happened. The rocky cliff path was gone. The gigantic wave was moving back out to sea, taking rocks, sand, seaweed, shells, and the surfboards with it. Scary, breathed Annie. Yeah, said Jack, we just made it. Boca, Kama, voices yelled. They turned around. Jack saw Boca and Kama's parents racing across the meadow toward them. Other villagers followed. The two Hawaiian kids ran into their parents' arms. Soon Jack and Annie were surrounded by villagers. Everyone was laughing and crying and hugging each other. Jack hugged Annie, and he hugged Kama and Boca and their parents, and lots of other people he didn't even know. Chapter 9. Telling the story. Finally, the hugging and crying and laughing died down. The villagers started walking back to their huts. Jack and Annie followed Boca, Kama, and their parents. We felt the ground shaking, said Boca and Kama's father. We knew a big wave might follow. Jack saved us, said Boca. He read in a book and found out about the big waves. What's a book? Asked his mother. Show them, Annie said to Jack. Jack reached into his pack and took out their research book. It tells about the big waves in here, he said. Books give lots of information. Oh, said Kama and Boca's mother, a book is a good thing. Books tell stories too, said Annie. That is impossible, said Kama. The book cannot move its feet or wave its hands. It cannot sing or chant. That's true, said Jack, smiling. Now we should do the hula, Boca said to Annie, Kama, and Jack, and tell our story. I'll watch, said Jack, stepping away. Boca and Kama's father called for music. The villagers gathered around. A man started to play a pipe, and a teenage boy knocked two sticks together. Some women began shaking rattles. Boca, Kama, and Annie waved their hands in time to the music. They stepped from side to side, and they swayed their hips. Boca chanted about going out into the water. She, Boca, and Annie waved their hands to show how they paddled out to sea. Kama chanted about how Jack had warned them. She and the others waved their hands to show how they rowed their surfboards to shore. Then Jack surprised himself. He waved his hands to show how he rode his surfboard like a bird soaring through the air. The next thing he knew, he was stepping from side to side. He was swaying his hips, and he was doing the hula. Kama chanted about how the water had pulled away from the shore and how they had climbed to safety and how the giant wave crashed against the cliff. As Kama chanted the story, all the villagers joined in the dance. The tall grasses swayed, and the palm trees swayed, and all the dancers swayed too. When the story ended, everyone clapped. Thanks for helping us, Boca said to Jack and Annie. We're a good team, said Annie. We are best friends, said Kama. Yeah, said Jack. I'm sorry that I said mean things. We're sorry we laughed at you, said Boca. I'm sorry I grabbed the book, said Annie. Our mother says friendship is like riding the waves, said Kama. Sometimes you ride low, gentle waves, and sometimes you ride high, rough ones. Annie gasped. She looked at Jack. She repeated Morgan's rhyme. To find a special magic, build a special kind of ship that rides the waves both high and low on every kind of trip. Friendship, that's the ship, said Jack, and we built it, said Annie. She and Jack burst out laughing. Boca and Kama looked a little confused, but they laughed too. We have to go back to our own home now, said Annie to Boca and Kama. It's time to say goodbye, said Jack. We never say goodbye, said Kama. We say aloha when we greet our friends, and we say aloha when we leave them. Friends are always together, said Boca, even when they're apart. Have a good journey in your magic treehouse, said Kama. Thanks, said Jack and Annie. They waved to all the villagers. Aloha! Aloha, everyone called back. Then Annie and Jack started through the meadow. Tiny yellow birds and orange and black butterflies flitted around them. At the edge of the meadow, they came to the grove of palm trees. They climbed up the rope ladder and into the treehouse. Out of the window, Jack saw the tall mountains, the small village, the flowery meadow, and the ocean. The water was peaceful again. I still have my lei, said Annie. She took it off. Though the red flowers were wet, they were still a little fluffy. It's proof that we found the special magic, said Jack. The magic of friendship. Annie put on the lei on the floor next to the play scrolls, the twig, the corn seeds, and she picked up the Pennsylvania book. Ready? She asked. Jack sighed. I love Hawaii, he said. Finally, you admit it, said Annie. She pointed at a picture of the Frog Creek woods. I wish we could go home now. The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster, and then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 10. Everyday Magic. Jack opened his eyes. The sun was setting beyond the woods. No time at all had passed in Frog Creek. Welcome back, said a soft, lovely voice. Morgan Le Fay was in the Magic Treehouse. Morgan, cried Annie. She threw her arms around the enchantress. Jack hugged Morgan too. Look, Morgan, said Annie, we have proof that we found 4 special kinds of magic. And if you don't remember from the first 4 books, Morgan Le Fay is the magic witch that created the treehouse. Yes, I see, said Morgan. Morgan picked up the play scrolls that Shakespeare had given Jack and Annie in an old England. You found the magic of theater, she said. Morgan picked up the twig from a mountain gorilla in the African cloud forest. And the magic of animals, she said. Morgan picked up the pouch of corn seeds from their trip to the first Thanksgiving. And the magic of community, she said. Finally, Morgan picked up the wreath of flowers from Kama and Boca. You discovered the magic of friendship, she said. Morgan looked at Jack and Annie for a long moment. Listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you, she said. Yes, they both leaned forward. You are now magicians of everyday magic, said Morgan. You have learned to find the magic in things you encounter on Earth every single day. There are many other forms of everyday magic. You never have to look far to find it. You only have to live your life to the fullest. Jack and Annie nodded. Soon you will be called upon to use your knowledge of everyday magic in the realm of fantasy. The realm of fantasy, said Jack. Are we going back to Camelot? Said Annie. Before Morgan could answer, a shout came from the distance. Jack! Annie! Our dad's calling, said Annie. You must go home now, said Morgan gently. Rest and get ready to test your powers. Your most exciting challenges are yet to come. Goodbye, Morgan, said Annie and Jack. They hugged the enchantress. Then Jack took the Hawaii book out of his pack and gave it to Morgan. He put on his backpack and followed Annie down the ladder. When they stepped onto the ground, there was a great roar above them. Jack and Annie looked up. A swirl of sparkling light lit the top of the tree, and then the light was gone. The treehouse was gone, and Morgan was gone too. Jack and Annie didn't speak for a long moment. Then Jack broke the silence. Our most exciting challenges are yet to come, he said. What do you think Morgan meant by that? I don't know, said Annie. It sounds a little scary, said Jack. That's okay. I think we can handle it, said Annie. She smiled. We're magicians of everyday magic. Jack smiled. Yeah, he said, I guess we are. They walked out of the woods as the sun was setting. Down their street, their mom and dad were sitting at the front porch. They waved at Jack and Annie. Jack felt a surge of happiness. There's another kind of everyday magic, he thought, the magic of family. In that moment, it seemed the best magic of all. The end. Wow, that was such a good book, my friends. I really hope that you enjoyed this one. I really like it because there's lots of really important themes in this book. Of course, the first one is friendship and how friends can kind of be a little bit of magic and they can really help you overcome things you might be scared of, or, they can help you try new things, and you can love your friends and they love you back. So I think that was a really great lesson in this book. And of course, trying new things is always great, and learning is a certain type of magic too. So I hope that you guys liked this book and that you learned a little bit about Hawaii. And I will see you guys next week for another Magic Treehouse book. I hope you have a great night, friends, and I'll see you next time at Get Your Play Online. Bye!